Good to see everyone. Quick introduction, Michael Connor and I lead the Generative AI practice for our CPG retail team globally. So last 6 months have been really fun. This is all anyone wants to talk about. So that's what we're going to cover today. I have a CPG background. I came from Coca-Cola. I was chief architect, and I led a data science innovation team. So I work with a lot of CPGs, and I want to talk through basically what I'm seeing with customers. I've talked to 1,000 C-suite and board members over the last 6 months. And so I've seen a lot in terms of what people are doing, use cases, how they're approaching it, how they're aligning with their business, how they're thinking through like privacy and ethics and things like that. So I want to share a lot about what I've learned basically in the last 6 months. So the big things I've learned is that there's like huge predictions in terms of what this technology is going to do for business. There's a $7 trillion estimated impact to GDP. This is like the first time that I've seen board members really getting engaged and senior executives where they're seeing a huge shift in their business coming, and they want to make sure that everyone in the organization has a plan, that that they have funding for it, and they really know what they're doing. And so engaging with board members has been something that's a bit new. So you've seen the announcements. We invested $4 billion in Anthropic. They make my favorite model, Claude. Meta announced that they're doing celebrities. You can now talk to Kendall Jenner 24 hours a day if that's your thing. And so a lot of changes to advertising. That image on the top right, Kate's Island Lager, affectionately named after Kate Wiley, our marketing lead. It's really changing advertising, and I think it will permanently. So I want to go through some of that stuff, share use cases, do some demos, and kind of just share what we're seeing across the industry. So we really think that this is a fundamental change in technology. I've had a lot of friends that say, hey, this is NFTs, or it's Bitcoins, or it's metaverse. And so we already see customers going into production. This is going to be a transformational shift. You've seen the announcements. We're all in on Amazon. Every group within Amazon is thinking about how to apply generative AI. So we're using this in our retail environment for reviews, for product descriptions, all across our business. So we really think it'll be transformative. This is just a simple demo that we put together using a couple things. One, it's kind of an R&D use case where we're creating a product concept, but it's bringing together two things, like imagery, generating a product concept to 2D images. Also, we're generating 3D CAD models from text to CAD. And then also building the press release, the product descriptions, internal communications, the social media piece. And so across like products, we're seeing a lot of generative AI use cases, especially around the merchandising, advertising, photo studios, and things like that. So I've seen 3 shifts with customers. The first 2 months, they wanted to know what the technology was. The second phase was we want to know what the use cases are. And this is kind of the use case roll-up, and I'll talk to this in a second. The third phase is how do we actually execute on this, organize as a business, get things into production, think about ethics and bias and stuff like that. So I'm really seeing a lot of people go into production in the last couple months. We did this with McKinsey about 5 months ago, but it really holds up. And so for CPG, we're seeing like marketing, sales, customer operations, product R&D, and software engineering as being the top use cases. And I thought that this would change, but it's really stood up. Retail is kind of similar. Software engineering is an obvious one. ETL jobs. When I was at Coca-Cola, we paid hundreds of millions to companies to do ETL jobs, transferring data from one system to the next. I think that that's going to go away, the zero ETL era. And so marketing and sales is the big one. So we'll show a couple use cases around there. Customers always want to grow revenue if they can. There are some times where there's opportunities like in call center to cut costs, but I think revenue growth is always where people want to focus. This is a customer I worked with, a COO of a retailer. We worked with their team, and in one day, these are all the use cases that we came up with. And so a lot of people are thinking, okay, there's ChatGPT, and we have chatbots, and they're having a hard time making the leap from what they see with the tech to actually how it can help their business. And so what we're seeing is every single aspect of a CPG retail business, and actually I think all businesses, is going to be affected. And this is just one day of work coming up with use cases for this business. So I think what happens is companies go from thinking, okay, how do I do a use case, and how do I think about generative AI for a specific use case or two, to all of a sudden you're thinking about how do I create a pipeline internally, a scalable pipeline to roll out 500, 1,000, 3,000 use cases across the organization. So I'll show you a little bit about drag and drop tools, how to move fast, trying to get out of code, but I see a lot of things slowing people down, and we'll talk about that. So I think there's a bit of a trough of disillusionment with some customers where they're thinking Gen AI, they're going to feed all their SAP data and magic is going to happen. And so it's really important to really share with people the difference between generative AI and AI and why they're both important, right? And so this is the way I describe it to people, and I found it helpful. Machine learning is where we took one data set and we trained a model on one task. The post office did this, of course, with handwriting recognition. And of course, deep learning is where we took a lot of different data and we used that to train a specific model, but we used a lot of different data sources. So demand forecast is a good example of that. So you're looking at historical sales, adjacent sales, competitor activity, your planogram, weather, the holiday calendar, all those types of things. But you still have one model. So at Amazon, we have a lot of these, thousands of models around the organization. Our demand forecast, product recommendations, we've got a lot of these. They're very good at math. They handle complex tasks. Generative AI is very different. So with generative AI, it's basically taking all the data from the internet and using it to train a model that can do a lot of different stuff, right? And so code generation, these are some of the examples we'll show, but code generation, image generation, text, summarization. And so it's amazing to me that we have a single model that can do thousands of things, right? But we tell people you have to have the generative AI and you have to have the deep learning as well. So the punchline to all of this is that none of it works without a good data strategy and being good stewards of your data. So I talked to companies and executives that said, look, we want to be data driven, we have all this data but no insights. And I talked and preached about the data lake and data mesh and a data catalog and data hygiene and a chief data officer. And some people took it to heart, some people didn't. Now they're taking it more seriously because we're telling them, look, to take advantage of Gen AI, you really have to get your house in order from a data perspective. So I think that gives weight to teams that want to do this to go back to the board and say, all right, time to take this really seriously. So I'll show you a couple of fun examples. Advertising is a game of decimal points, and if you can build an ad that catches people's eye, it can really make a big difference in return on an ad spend. And so this is using Stable Diffusion on Amazon G4DN instance. And it's different from something like DALL-E 3 or a Midjourney. And the reason is because those products, you give it text and it spits something out. It's either good or it's not. With this, we actually have a lot of control. This is a drag and drop tool called Comfy UI, really brilliant stuff. And it gives us the ability to pull together a lot of different AI to produce a result. So in this case, what we're doing is generating an ad, and what I asked it to do is, you can see this, I'm naming a specific park, Piedmont Park, in Atlanta, Georgia. I want to show the skyline in the background, and I'm actually telling it what the dog name is too. So imagine generating an ad for every single park in the world with every single breed, but especially the breeds that are popular in that neighborhood. So I went ahead and changed it over to a golden doodle, a lot of golden doodles in my neighborhood. But essentially what this does is SDXL is a model with Stable Diffusion. It generates the new image. It does a base pass. It has a refiner pass. So it really adds, like you'll see skin pores and nuanced things, like every little detail in the eye is perfect. And then it generates the golden doodle, right? So the AI is really bad at generating product images. And so what we've done is we created an overlay, a PNG here, with a product image, a QR code, the messaging, and then it's overlaying, and this is what I like about these tools here, it's overlaying this product. So it's kind of fun to go over to Bedrock and say, look, give me a list of all the parks, give me a list of all the dog breeds, and so we're using the text generation to then generate all these. So what we can do now is generate thousands of these images. This is actually the way that the Amazon Ads platform works now. It generates the background images. It also generates messaging for each different product and each different audience segment. So I love this stuff. Let's see, go to the next one. Yeah, so this is an example of all the different dogs that we created, right? I've noticed that a lot of brands are really squeamish about generating human faces. The concern is that if you generate a human face that looks like someone and you don't have rights to that person's image, is there a legal liability? So you heard Adam Silipsky talking about the indemnification. That's something that we're kind of talking through. but I think that that's the way that things are going to go. Dogs are a little bit less of a third rail, right? A little bit less sensitive. So I want to blow through a bunch of examples on how you can use this stuff. Like right now, all of these were done without any coding whatsoever. Most of these demos were done within 20 minutes. I'll show you how to do that with the drag and drop tools. But I'll give you some examples. In this example, we've got a product. So we take the image and the details from the image. In this case, we don't have a good product description. We just have these kind of bullet points. Instead of generating a product description for everyone, we generate it based on a Nielsen segment, a Prism segment. So we know where these rising singles, we know where they live, we know where they shop, what they drink. And so we're actually asking the model to create a product description given that product for that target demographic. We can also do it in French, 10 other languages. So I had a customer with 300,000 items in their product catalog. It was a mess. There were special characters, HTML codes, and imagine being able to clean that up really quickly with this model. Same thing with SEO keywords. One of my customers last week said that all of their people that were copywriters are now copy editors. The models are generating all of the copy for products. So we're seeing some role changes and some change management that needs to happen. But there's a lot you can do around the products. Pricing analysis. So this is kind of meant to be generic, but a lot of times you have a data scientist in your organization that's doing something like pricing analysis, but really getting the business to understand it is difficult. So in this case, what we're doing is we have a Python notebook, and we're looking at what are the most important things about our product that affect the price in sell-through. It could be reviews, the quality of the product, the total price, competitor pricing, and we've got all that data. And so here what I've done is I've said, look, explain this analysis to me. And I did another one where I said, explain it to me like I'm a 10-year-old. But so what I see is planograms, pricing, assortment, a lot of these complex things that were really hard for people to understand at the business level. You can now have the data in your data lake. You can have this really sophisticated analysis, but a business user can talk to that analysis in really simple plain English, or 10 other languages, right? Here's another fun one. I had a customer that said that it takes them 6 weeks. They make athletic wear, yoga pants and things. They said it takes them 6 quarters to get a product to market, right? So it's the concepts, the naming, the colors, all the CAD models. And so this is an example where basically we could give it a product description, and we could generate, in seconds, we can generate hundreds of different products. And the idea is that we would probably change this before we go to market, right? But the ability to generate hundreds of product ideas, generate the CAD models, the descriptions, is really super powerful, right? I love that one. So this is another good one. In a manufacturing environment, a lot of my customers tell me when a machine goes down, it costs them money, but the machines are really complex and they don't have people on staff that know how to operate them and fix them. So what they end up doing is they end up going to a room where they pull the manual, they flip through it, and they're trying to figure that out. So a really complex set of information about how to repair equipment. And so what I did was I gave the model the PDF of the manuals of the equipment. You can see this is really complex stuff. And then we can start to ask questions of the equipment. So if the line goes down and the bottle filler is giving us trouble, we can go in and someone on the shop floor can ask questions like, how do I bypass the bottle detector? That comes back. And what the model's doing is it's going into the manual, reading through things, and then it's going to answer. You can ask something like, help me troubleshoot this. It can actually look across multiple documents and database to formulate that answer. And of course, you can do it in 10 languages. So if you have people that are Spanish speaking, French speaking, it's really powerful for them to be able to get access. So I'm going to show you how to build this. This was built in about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll show you exactly how we do it. There's something called, well, let me back up. There's something called Langchain, which is the framework that helps you glue all these systems together. So the model doesn't know anything about your business. It doesn't know anything about the equipment. So what Langchain does, it helps the model talk to your database, to your knowledge base, to the reviews in your product catalog. And so Langchain stitches it all together, but you have to know Python, it's complex. So these tools, this one's called Flowwise, allow you to drag and drop components And to build that demo that I just showed you, this was all built in about 15 minutes using no coding tools. There's another one called Langflow if you like Python. I'm a Node.js developer. I love Node.js, right? So here, we gave it the document, the PDF file. I'm using Hugging Face embeddings, the mini LLM. I gave it a Bedrock component running in US East. My favorite models are the Anthropic Claude models. Sorry, Titan, but I love these models. They're really fast, very, very, very sophisticated. And then at the end, we give it a conversational QA chain. And that's all we need to build that flow. And you could take that flow and you could put it in a mobile device, you could put it in a web page or on a tablet in the factory floor. And the idea is, back to that list of use cases, if you've got thousands of use cases in your business, you got to figure out how to deliver these really quickly. If every one of these use cases is a Python developer checking into the CI/CD platform, running through QA, it's really going to be hard to get the value out of it, right? So, product catalog is super interesting. Right now, when you go to an e-commerce site, you're looking for specific items, right? So if you're going hiking, you may look for boots, a jacket, a hat. The platform doesn't know what your intent is. I think the future of shopping is to really have a conversation with the product catalog to say, hey, I'm going hiking in North Georgia mountains this weekend. The model can know the temperature, it can know the weather, it can make product recommendations based on that. And I think that's where things are going to go. And Instacart announced something like this, we did as well. You're going to tell the system what you're looking for, and you'll have a conversation with it. In this use case, basically, I did the same thing I did with manufacturing. You give it the product catalog, and you can ask it questions. Can you recommend a face wash good for sensitive skin? All my health and beauty customers, they're all about the regimen, right? So you want a moisturizer, a face wash, a makeup remover, they should work well together. And so you can ask it in multiple languages. And I think that this is the way that retail is going to go. And you can ask follow-up questions. It's really easy to do. One of my customers, they have 100,000 products in their catalog, and we're building something with them around the sales enablement. So when you go into their retail store, their seller, they just started. They don't know 100,000 products in the catalog. They probably don't know 100. And so the ability for the seller to also use this app to be able to help the customer be thoughtful about product recommendations is super powerful. We were talking about call center earlier, and every single industry has this. But basically, when you get a phone call to a call center, a lot of them are QA'd after the fact. 5% of calls typically are QA'd. It's expensive, it takes a long time. Agents are tasked with summarizing the call afterwards. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. They don't do a good job a lot of times. So we have Amazon Connect, which is our call center. There's all kinds of crazy cool use cases you can light up right away. The basic architecture is you have a Connect instance, we transcribe the call to text, then we start running it through the models, right? What could the agent have done better? We did no training on this, by the way. Everyone wants to talk about training models. None of this was using training. Create a call summary of this call with 100 words or less. Do it in French, all right? Super powerful. This is using the Claude Instant model, which is kind of comparable to ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo. Super fast, low cost model. I use the Claude 2 when I need something more powerful. I like this too. What was the result of the call? Or how about, did the agent commit to anything? Because if the agent said, look, we'll follow up in 2 days, then you want to maybe open a Salesforce ticket to make sure that they follow up, right? So I love some of the code stuff. I had a mainframe at Coca-Cola we migrated, and we couldn't find the COBOL developers that wrote it. So it's really cool to be able to ask the system, given this COBOL or any code, tell me what this code does, all right? And then once you know what it does, you could say, hey, how about converting that to Python? So all these old legacy systems you have, your ability to now migrate that to a new platform is really super powerful. And I was doing the same thing with CloudFormation. This is the last demo I'll show. But it used to be it took 3 months to get an application up and running in your data center. Amazon made it faster. We took it down to like maybe a few days to get the architecture. Now with CloudFormation, you can actually have Claude or the models generate your CloudFormation template. You can do the same thing with Code Whisper. But here I say, create an Amazon Connect instance in the US East and give me an example flow. So it's building the CloudFormation template in real time. We can then run that and get all the infrastructure stood up within minutes. So you got a call center in just a few minutes. Super powerful. I would QA this stuff. Assume it's like a really brilliant, hardworking intern. They're really smart, you want to give them direction, but when the stuff comes back, you want to double check it, you want to sanity check it, right? So never assume the model is perfect. Most of my customers are using human in the loop use cases. So the model will generate something, and there's a human that's looking at it and validating it before you put it out into production. I would still recommend that at this point. It's not the technology that's going to hold you back. It's the change management, aligning with the business, focus on the business outcomes. A lot of times I think the best thing you can do is work with the business, figure out what their goals are for the year, and focus on this kind of like management, the McKinsey Bain. What are the things that we could do with Gen AI that are high impact, that are low effort? Start here, don't train the models, use stuff that's out of the box. Start with call center, human in the loop. I see a lot of companies that are stuck in POC land, they're building hundreds of POCs, nothing in production. Start with a small set, get your responsible use framework up and running, and if you don't have one, you can use ours. So this is our responsible use framework. You can find it online. So most of my customers are taking what we have and they're adding to it, right, rather than starting from scratch. And that talks about how do you get this thing into production, how do you monitor it, how do you think about your team diversity, risk, bias, harm, and all the legal implications. So again, I'm Michael Connor. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be here after too. I'd love to follow up, have some deep discussions with you. But thank you for being here at reInvent. It's good to see you all.